and very good evening to all our guests who are here, or the listeners, and thanks to Kwame Junction for hosting such a nice and a wonderful sessions and providing me a chance to share my thoughts or the ideas on such a wonderful or amazing title. So, can we start from this, like Aryan and Dravidians, genetic history of South Asian? Why we selected this title? Because I think when we talk about the South Asian history, these two are very big names that seems to be always in a light, or when we see the colonial literature, or if anyone who is connected with the history have always listened these terms in one shade or other shade, and there are a lot of controversies around this. Some says these are racist, some says these are ethno-linguistic terms, and definitely there is a lot of things that we can discuss in this title, but that's why we choose these two terms. But the title of our talk today is The Genetic History of South Asia based on modern genetic research. So the point is that first of all, I'm really sorry, short introduction for myself. That I'm a Dr. Rehan Asad, a medical doctor from background, and working as a medical faculty at a medical school. And as a passionate history learner and history lover, I run a forum that's known as Tawari Khwani, taking a name from Arabic and a Persian, amalgamation of the two languages, sharing a shared heritage of humanity, I would like to say, rather than South Asian history. So that's the idea, and it's forum run not individually by me. Many of my friends, Mr. Khalid bin Umar and others, contributed a lot for running this forum. So from this forum, we just want to share a common history and a common heritage that connect us together. That's the point actually. So if we look at history, this is something that gives us an idea of our past, or it's a window for our past. And now, in 21st century, when we are at the age of genetic advancement, in 2003, one of the big, or I could like to say one of the gigantic project was completed, that was a sequencing of a complete human genome. So once we have a complete human genome, we were able to know many things about ourselves as a Homo sapiens or as a human beings, what we didn't know before. Those people who are related to anthropology, they know that colonial literature or the colonial scientists at that time, we could not blame them only for their stereotyped thinking, but at that time they don't have any parameters like this, what we have today. So they just classify based on the phenotypic appearance people into all the planet into three parts: Caucasians, Negritos, or Negroid, or Mongoloid. But it's really amazing to see that all these terms are now look like absurd, or I would like to say based on the genetic research, it's rubbish. And now European academic literature starts removing the word Caucasian, because I think probably from the genetic point of view, it's no longer exists. Even US Medical Library of Medicine, where we used to read a lot of the times the diseases and the incidence of the disease as Caucasian, is now removed. And they are switching to the regional term European. So going back to our title very quickly and cutting short, that what we are made up of, or what is our history. So out of many theories, recently the theory that got a maximum attestation on scientific research and article is outside Africa theory. That give us a point that at one point of a time, 65,000 years back or 70,000 years back, the first biological Adam, or would like to say our ancestor, took a foot outside Africa. And from this moment, the populations move, and the migration was an integral part of human history. So like Tony Joseph in his book, what has recently got too much popularity about early Indians, has talked about this point that if we talk in this way, we all are migrants. So everyone is migrant and everyone is a native in one term or the other term. So, and this is a way how the humans have evolved. So the point is that once we came up or go outside Africa, so there was a multiple migrations, people moving in the different sites, and that was the age which we say the Mesolithic or the Stone Age. And definitely the ancestors or our ancestors of humanity in the Mesolithic age has certain tools, but they are quite limited, not we can compare to today's age, but they were also advanced in the terms that they have societies, the sort of languages they are speaking, we don't know what they speak, how they... Definitely the human migration was a part of that. And in that migration from outside Africa, passing through the Arabian Peninsula, and following the coastal route, the first humans or the human species like Homo sapiens set the foot in our Indian subcontinent, what we know as today's South Asia, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and partly Afghanistan also. And in this way, from here the migration continues to the eastward and even reaching up to Australia, that we know as Aborigines of Australia. These were the early humans that took the route from our subcontinent and reaching up to Australia. And this is how the first humans started their civilization in Indian subcontinent in the Mesolithic age. At the same time, they passed and took the routes to the different places of Europe, passing through Middle East and also reaching up to Siberia. And as we know that farming was developed much later in the age. So the time what we say at that age is hunter-gatherers, because the society was based primarily on hunting. So that's why the term hunter-gatherers was used. So just for the sake of convenience, the genetic scientists used to divide the names for that hunter-gatherer population. Like when we talk about Eastern Iranian hunter-gatherer coming up in our session, that's the base of our population. In the same way, we have a term used as like Western hunter-gatherers or Western European hunter-gatherers, Western Siberian hunter-gatherers. So these are some primarily populations that existed at that time, if we go like 10,000 or 11,000 years before. And that was almost end of the Ice Age. And we say a new age was started, that is known as Holocene era, where the things start clearing out, the human species got the space to move across the continent, and they have a green pastures, they have a more clear environment, they have a more clear spaces. So this is how the ancient population start mixing and evolving. So this is a story of mixture or admixture, I would like to say, which genetic scientists they using the term. So David Reich, one of the key founder, or I would like to say the key scientist from the Harvard University, who played a pivotal role in all this genetic research in last 10 years, use a very beautiful term that if anybody think on this planet that he belongs to any pure race, so pure race is sometimes used for the derogatory purposes, so he's 100% wrong. We all humans are an outcome of admixture. This is, I think, one of the key points that we are going to focus today, and we will cover it in our Indian context, how we are a mixture of the different populations and what is our base. In between, if you have any question, you will just click to our host Kwame Junction and they can moderate your question wherever they find convenient. It's an interactive session. Please feel free to ask the questions, but related to the topic. That's the point and my request only. So any point you would like to add, or I will continue?
I guess we can continue, and when I get requests for questions, and I can bring them in.
Sure. And if you have any question in between, any terminology, please let me know that I can clarify it. If any technical or the scientific terminology came in between, okay? And so we are coming back to our story. So once the population that reached to India 45 or 40,000 years before, this population was the ancient most population that was living as a hunter-gatherers in India. And while David Reich and his team was doing a research, and we will come on that research, so they gave labels to certain populations, because just to know that what's terminology we can use for understanding the readers on in the scientific body. So the label that was given to that population was Ancient Ancestral South Indians, AASI. This was a label was given for them. This is for the sake of terminology, but we can think that this was the earliest population that was living in India. And the closest congeners of that population, we don't have today that population. Definitely we all are that mixtures of different populations. So if we can say even the closest congener of that population, so the Andaman and Nicobar Islanders, the tribals, and the Aborigines living in Australia are the closest congener of that population, if we can say in the today's term, even though they are also not the same. They are tribals, they are not mixing with others, but even though they are not the same as the genetic constant of that population in that time. Now, some events start happening in the northwest of our Indian subcontinent. That's now present day Afghanistan and Pakistan. And what the phenomena going on there, there is a population of Eastern Aryans And these Eastern Iranian hunter-gatherers would like to say at that time the farming was not evolved. This was before it was thought that it was the farming communities of Iran that helped in developing the Indus Valley civilization and the spread of the agriculture. But now recently we got, from new research, we got this idea that agriculture was developed individually in this northwest area of subcontinent that later on came to know as Indus Valley civilization, and it was definitely a part of a cultural exchange that's going on in Middle East, or what we say Anatolian farmers that are developing a sort of agriculture in the earliest time in Mesopotamia. And same it was spreading to some other sites in Europe. In the same way it was spreading in our part of the world. And these two populations mix with different admixture, and a new population starts evolving there in northwest of India. And much later, this population got a name as Indus Valley, what we say today as Indus Valley. So it was the earliest Moor site was near Baluchistan, that is known as Mehergarh, and many archaeologists has worked on these sites. These are not new, from long before the people are working on that. What perspective new we got today is the basis of the genetic research that give us the idea what these people are exactly. So these people, ancient Iranian people, start mixing with different way with this ancestral ancient South Indian level population that was living in subcontinent from a long time, and it's more than 40,000-50,000 years from the Mesolithic age they were living here. And now the farming start developing here on this site. And recently we came to know that this civilization that we later know as one of the biggest civilization of the contemporary ages of its time, it was the Indus Valley civilization. And by the time of Indus Valley civilization developed, its geographical area spans a much larger size. Before it was thought that it was only a small civilization close to Harappa. But now we know that many sites up to the modern Gujarat, and even there are places in Afghanistan that's close to the Panj River. It's a small archaeological site known as Shortugai. So this Shortugai was also a part of the Indus civilization in the later days. It's like a trading colony of Indus Valley civilization. So the people of Indus Valley civilization were much advanced in their time. They made their brick houses. They were contemporary of Mesopotamian civilization, contemporary of Egyptian civilization, Yellow River civilization in China. And definitely they were also a mix of different sort of people, but majority of them come from Eastern Iranian and ancestral ancient South Indian. That's why Tony Joseph in his book used the term early Indian. Because when we go through the history, as we know outside Africa theory, so everybody is immigrant in this world and in his place. So that's why that was also an admixture of certain populations of their time. And they were the product of their time. And their trading, they were quite efficient in trading. They trade by the maritime also, reaching up to the Gulf of Aden and parts of Mesopotamian by routes. They have a trading post, even in a very ancient civilization of Iran that's known as Scheherazade. We'll come on that during some recent research when the DNA analysis was taken from the samples from that site also. So they also have a very close contact with another very rich civilization that's a part of Central Asia. And archaeologists used to say the term BMAC. And BMAC is a term used for Bactria Margiana archaeological complex that's located in the present day Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, partly in Afghanistan and Kyrgyzstan. It was a big area that's widely popular as BMAC. So these all are neighboring civilizations. Now what languages used to speak, we don't know. We are not able to, linguists didn't able to decipher till now that what was a language of Indus Valley civilizations, though we have a very sign and pictures, but still deciphering is in the place. Some people suggest a theory came up that Eastern Iranian, because there was a lot of cultural contact with Eastern Iran at that time, so there was a civilization before the upcoming of a very powerful force that's known today as the Aryans, Elamite civilization that are in contact with both with Mesopotamia and with Indus Valley. So probably Elamite language has now been extincted, and some suggestions that probably it was a sort of a different form of Elamite language, and that becoming a father language or the proto-language for the later Dravidian languages. This is one of the theories. Still, linguists can shed the more light on this research, but we don't know exactly what was the language spoken by Indus Valley people. Now, in this age, how we came to know about all this, that what was happening and how after Indus Valley civilization, the next people used to come. So just after Indus Valley civilization was at its peak, and this was a time like we can say in 3000 BC, when the Indus Valley civilization was at its peak, and this civilization prospered due to trade. And in Indus Valley civilization, one of the very specific part is that we didn't find any monarchs. We didn't find any religious monasteries. That was more common in Mesopotamia, more common in Egypt. It seems to be like equal federal states governed by certain sort of a system. And they certainly used to have some gods or something, but the major space is public places, and public bath used to be rediscovered right now at some sites. So it seems to be a sort of a society that was created by a people. There was seems more empowerment to the people in Indus Valley civilization rather than giving up big statues for the monarchs or big gods. Or certainly they used to have some sort of religion, but we don't know what religion was they were following. So the maturation phase of Harappan Valley was from like 2800 BC up to 1900 BCE. So this period we could like to say roughly 4000 years back. But how suddenly this civilization came to an end? Still, this is again a point of a research. Before, it was thought that the people coming from Central Asia or the Steppes people, what we know as Aryans in our part of the world, they invaded and they destroyed the Indus Valley civilization. But recent research says that there is no sign of destruction. An obvious sign of destruction is not present. Yes, definitely the people came up from the steppes of Central Asia or Europe, but by that time, probably it seems that there was sort of a climatic change. The river valleys on which this civilization was gained the impetus, or where it was born, that river valleys get dried up, and the people start moving from the Indus Valley towards the southern part of the peninsula. And in that sense, or in that time when Harappan Valley was declining, a new wave of people start coming up from the steppes area, or what we say that in today's our terminology like Aryans. And that was a time where the people from Indus Valley took the agriculture towards the southern part of our peninsula. And in this way, the more down south migration started. Now, when the people of Indus Valley, by the time when Indus Valley was at its prime, like 4000 years back, they were the mixture, as we told before, ancestral, ancient South Indians and Eastern Iranians. And they become obvious from the research when we took the DNA samples from that time. Now, going back to the story of the Aryans, because this term is used and exploited in a different way, like when we go to the 20th century Europe, and we saw that Hitler would like to say like a psychopath who used this term in a different way, and he took it as a racial superiority, as a Nordic mixture, or what we say the Nordic race. Today that has been disproven again, and to a certain set of a population that was living here for more than 1000 years, the Semitic race, or people from a Jewish tribe, who they were also that mixture of the different populations of their time. And in this way, a huge genocide happened in the name of the Aryan theory. Again, in our part of the world, when we used to trace in the ancient text what are Aryans, or what is the term Aryan is used. Very briefly, I will not go in that detail of that part, but we will find that this term has been used both in Iran and ancient Indian texts. So when we say the term Arya or the Aryan, it's originally used for like a ethnocultural background of the people in ancient time. And this was mentioned as Aryavarta. Aryavarta is something, the place or the abode of the Aryan. We see this term in later Vedic period when this culture was emerged. And the same was happening in the Iran when we see the Avesta scriptures. The ancient Iranian people used the term Arya. By this way, they used to make a mythical homeland known as Aryanam Vejo, that is a stretch of the Arya. And in this way, this term becoming a prototype in the ancient cultures of India and Iran. But now going back, what exactly they were and from where they came. This was a land that is located between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea in today's modern Europe and Central Asia. a lot of countries. It's passing through many countries, coming up from the Eastern Europe like Georgia and coming back here up to the Kazakhstan. And the culture that was exactly termed or named by the archaeologists is Yamnaya culture. And this culture was evolving like around 3300 BC. And Yamnaya people, this term came up from the Russian language. Basically, they used to bury their dead in a very peculiar type of a pit. That's why this culture is known as Yamnaya culture. And itself, these people also didn't we say that come up all of the sudden from nowhere. These people are also amalgamation of like ancient European Western hunter-gatherers and other hunter-gatherer population that was present there. And from this population, this Klein is a term used in the genetics for the certain trait of the population made up of different admixtures. So this Klein was evolved. This is termed as Yamnaya people. The people who used to bury them in the pits. In some texts, also the term used as Kuruban culture because they used to make a very specific type of a graves that give a certain sort of appearance. This is known as Kuruban culture. And these people were first to domesticate the horse. And mostly they are pastoralist. And when we look in the history, we usually say the settlers or the more advanced agrarians people or those who are doing the agriculture, they are usually displaced by these pastoralists because pastoralists need for a much larger lands. So there is more migration capabilities in pastoralists. And certainly, we would not like to use the term invasion, but definitely there was a sort of exchange of force and there was a resistance by certain population. And later on, the people accepted and mixed with the local populations. And this phenomena was happening on both sides. So this migration was going on the eastern and the western end. When we talk about the western end, that means it's reaching also to the Middle East. It's reaching to Europe, starting from the Eastern Europe and going towards Western Europe. And the same phenomena at the same time we saw coming towards the Iran and coming towards India. But still scientists don't know the route, whether it come via Iran or come directly from the part of Central Asia to southward towards India or Indian subcontinent. So this was a background. By 2000 BC or 1900 BC, we saw little late the arrival of these Yamnaya people. Now, what scientists do and what was this study that happened in 2019 and that changed the complete perspective of what we saw our South Asian people or the ancestry of South Asian people. And same thing happened on the European population just 2 or 3 or 4 years before, just preceded to our research that happened in our part of world or South Asia. So these people once came here, they start mixing the people of Indus Valley that were already present from the millennium or the centuries, a mixture of Eastern Aryans, some BMAC contribution and some of the major contribution from ancient ancestral South Indian population. So just making it simple because it's very difficult term. So this is a new admixture with the arrival of Yamnaya people.